Okay. What we can glean from the Sphira. A good Erev Shabbos, and it's Pesach Sheni, and it's a wonderful evening for a Parsha class. The pasuk that I'd like to begin with this evening seems to be repetitive from a pasuk that we just had in a few chapters ago. So a few chapters ago in Perek Yutes in Kedoshim, I believe, it says, "Ubekutzerchem es ktsir artzachem," when you will harvest all of your land, lo yisachale, do not complete all the harvesting, rather leave over a corner on the edge of your land in order that people will be able to come and enjoy from it. Right? Lo yisachale pa'asodcha liktzor, v'leket kitzircha lo salaket. And you also shouldn't take any gleanings. What are gleanings? Gleanings are when you go to cut the wheat or cut the corn or the like. Some fall on the floor. And if a couple fall on the floor, we leave them there. And this is called matnas aniyim. Matnas aniyim are the gifts that we leave for the poor. We take care of the society. And the same thing is true not only with wheat and corn, but also for the vineyard. So v'karmacha loisa olel, when you have a vineyard, you have grapes that aren't completely ripe, right? Or peret karmacha losa laket, or when you're cutting, if there's a little left over that fall on the ground, one or two you have to leave there. Why? La'ani v'lager tazovosam. For the ani, the poor person, or the stranger who doesn't own land, right? A ger doesn't own land in Eretz Yisrael. Tazovosam. You leave it there for them. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. So we had these beautiful psukim already a few chapters ago, 4 chapters ago. And then, fascinatingly, again, in our Parsha this week, and I'm going to show you in a few minutes when we get to it, where the location of this verse is fascinating. So it states, again, almost verbatim, "Uvekutzerchem es ktsir artzachem," when you harvest your bounty from the land. Again, lo yisachale pasadcha bekutzrecha. Don't go ahead and complete cutting up and harvesting from all the corners of your land. V'leket kitzircha lo salaket, and don't take the gleanings, those that are left behind. Rather, la'ani v'lager tazovosam ani Hashem Elokeichem. Very, very similar. And it behooves us to ask the question, why is it that there's a repetition? Why would Hashem tell Moshe to write this only 4 chapters apart in Parshas Vayikra? So the Netziv, the holy Netziv, the Rosh Yeshiva of Volozhin explained. He says, "Le'el b'Parshas Kedoshim." Earlier, 4 chapters ago, Ksivi asharas halalu b'chuki Hashem hemeviyim lidei shalom. He says there, these laws were amidst an entire set of laws that brought peace to the land, because when there's a lack of food and sustenance in society, it brings a tremendous amount of unrest and chaos, which our government is trying to prevent right now. All governments are trying to prevent unrest, which is why they've been trying to advance so many opportunities for people to sustain. But here, v'kan seder akasuv hazaras halalu, b'makom shehizir akasuv al mitzvah shemevi shefa bracha. In this section, the reason why the Torah brings this verse again, first of all, it teaches us 2 lavim. There are 2, a person who does pick up from the corners of their property and doesn't leave for the poor. They're violating two negative prohibitions in the Torah. But also, the Torah is teaching us how to bring blessing into our lives. Hachinami azivas leket shikha upeya. If we leave for the poor, for the forlorn, for those that don't have, if we leave a section and we leave behind gleanings, maybe lidei bracha, it's going to bring us blessing into our lives. You know, it's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive because you think the less I give, the more I have. But the Torah teaches us what we think isn't so. It's the more I give, the more I have. Right? I'll never forget when it was pointed out to me that the first year El Al turned a profit was the year that they stopped flying on Shabbos. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Should be the more flights that you have, the more earnings you're going to have. But the Torah tells us no. Torah, God gives you a promise. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I run the world differently than the way that you would understand. Now I want to take a look together in chapter 23. Okay? Chaf Gimel, which is what we're getting into right now. Take a look with me. I'm going to read with you. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Emor. It's in this week's Parsha. God comes and he tells us about the holidays. What's the first holiday? Verse number 3. Sheshet Yamim Te'aseh Melacha. That you'll have Shabbos. And Shabbos, nothing happens without Shabbos. Shabbos Bereishis. And Shabbos every single week. Shabbos tomorrow night. And then we move to the holidays. B'chodesh HaRishon. In the first month, what's the first month? Nisan, which we just had. We're going to have Pesach. And on the 15th of that month, we're going to have Matzah. And it's going to be a 7-day holiday. The first day and the last day. For 7 days, it's holy. And then we get to Sfira. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Emor. Daber el bnei Yisrael. Speak to the Jewish people. And when you come to the land, only once you get to Israel, and you harvest your harvest, you're going to bring an Omer offering. Omer reishis ketzirchem el hakohen. You're going to bring the first of your wheat harvest, of barley rather, your first barley harvest to the Kohen. He's going to do the wave, v'heinev Omer lefnei Hashem, like we do with a lulav and an esrog, on the day after the first day of Pesach. And then there's going to be other offerings with a lamb, and there's going to be a flour offering and a libation, and you're not going to have any bread or corn or anything that was planted in the previous year until after this Omer offering is brought. And then you're going to start counting. And you'll count all the way to Shavuos, verse 15. Usvartem lachem imachros haShabbos. All right, tonight we're going to count when we daven. Last night was 28. Tonight we're going to make sure that we count, and you count all the way until up to the 50th. Tisperu chamishim yom, after 49 days, and you're going to bring. Then is the one time we have a flour offering that has chametz. You're going to bring chametz te'afena, and it's going to be the first bread of the shtei alechem. And you'll bring these lechem, 18, and now it's Shavuos. Unbelievable. Get ready for Shavuos. Almost 20 days away. And there's going to be other offerings at that time. And you're going to call this day Krasem Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh Mikra Kodesh. It's going to be a holiday, a holy convocation with no malacha done. First 21 verses, all holiday based. Then, notice it's underlined. What do we have there? Our verse about leaving for the ani and the ger, the pei and the leket. What on earth is our verse doing as a mechitza in the middle of this holiday section? Ubekutzrechem es ksir artzachem, and when you harvest, you know what? Leave over the paya and leave over the leket and make sure that everybody's taken care of. And now, after this commercial, after this mechitza, we get back to regularly scheduled programming on verse 23. And we continue with Rosh Hashanah, and then Yom Kippur. Sorry, mistake. Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot. Right? This is all Yom Kippur here. And now we have Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres, and it's a very nice long parak, and we are done at 44. Okay, my friends, why on earth would Hashem put in the middle of the parak a verse about giving matnas aniyim? I don't understand. It seems so out of place. As I write, seems very out of place. So I found a few mafarshim. The Seforno, Rabbi Ovadia Seforno, says the following. You know why it seems to be out of place? I'll tell you why. Ubekutzrechem achar ha'haidoa al hakatzir v'atzlachaso hizir al mitzvahs l'kiyum mammon hamusag b'hatzlacha. The Torah is giving us the recipe on how to maintain our success. You want to know how to maintain your success? Make sure you share it. If you don't share your success with those that don't have, then you will not be able to maintain that success. It'll be like frittering it away. Kamram melach mamon chaser. If people scatter their money away like salt. Yeah? Don't let your money get salted away. So therefore, right after we hear about Shavuos, Yom HaBikurim, we start harvesting. The Torah slips in there a verse, Uvachutzerchem. You want to know how to keep it? I'll tell you how to keep it. Make sure you keep it by giving these beautiful gifts of leket, shikha, and peah, which we're going to talk about. Well, that's very nice. But why after Shavuos and not after the other holidays? Right? The end of the harvest season, or is by Sukkot. So why here after Shavuos particularly? So look at what the Chassam Sofer says. I don't have this translated, I'll translate. Chassam Sofer says, Ubekutzrechem mikan lamdu chazal. Our sages teach us tashlumen l'shvuos. Ezu chag shetakore v'kotzer haveyomer zet tashlumen shel shvuos. What does that mean? It means that all other holidays are 7 days. And if you don't bring your offering on the first day, you could bring it throughout the holiday. However, on Shavuos, you may have other opportunities to bring. You have 7 days also. But here it says, Lachein kasuv mitzvahs pei leket, lomar kol anosein matnas aniyim. Anybody who gives these gifts to the poor, Ke'ilu hikriv korbanos. It's like you're giving offerings on the altar. When you take care of others, it's an offering to Hashem. Nira li, it seems to me, diyan diyom hakodesh yom habikurim yom matan Torah grua. At first glance, people could look and say Shavuos isn't as important as the other holidays. Sukkot, you have 7 days. Pesach, you have 7 days. And Shavuos, this is 1 day, 2 days in Chutz La'aretz. He says, no. Yemei tashlumim shaloim chol gamor. Shavuos is so holy that even on weekdays you can turn it into holiness. When you don't have Chol HaMoed like Pesach and Sukkot, therefore give your leket and peah. Once you've planted, right after Pesach, they start coming up. Make sure that you leave over for the less fortunate, la'ani, la'ger, la'yasom, the orphan, people who don't have. V'roi yamim alo liyos yemei tashlumim liyom hakadosh halazeh. And those days throughout the entire summer, when you leave over, it's tantamount to bringing a korban. So because we brought it up, everybody hears about this all the time, I figured we'd take a few minutes to learn about leket, shikha, and peah. What are they? To really understand it, you have to learn Mishnayos peah. And also, you can see in the Rambam. So these are gleanings, forgotten produce in the corners of the field. And there are 3 different categories for grains. Okay, one of them is peah, corners. I once heard it said that that's not the reason, but it's likened to the payas that a man leaves on the corner of his face, especially because we know that some people have longer payas. Why do you have longer payas? You have longer payas to show that I want to demonstrate even more that I want to do the mitzvah. The same thing, people would leave bigger sections. How much payah do you have to leave? Usually a 60th of the field. Leket, as I explained, are gleanings. Gleanings are when you go to cut the produce, there's going to be some that fall. Those that fall, if it's only 1 or 2, you leave it behind. If it's 3, you can pick it up. And shikha is when you leave behind the sheaves, the whole, the big, like you've seen wheat bundles. And if you leave 1 or 2 of those behind, so then you would not forgotten produce, you would leave it behind also for those. Now he says leket refers to the ears of corn which fall to the ground during reaping. It was usual for the reaper to grasp the ears of the corn with one hand and cut it with the other. If during reaping 1 or 2 stalks fell to the ground, he was to not gather them and leave it for the poor. And that's leket. And the same way you have leket with grain, you have peret with the vineyard. Therefore, if you're harvesting grapes and 2 fall to the ground, you leave them for the poor. That's peret. And olalos are small clusters of grapes that have not blossomed yet. In the vineyard, they also belong, in accordance with the verse, that you should not glean the vineyard, etc., in the fallen of the vineyard. So that is a little primer. So just to review, so everybody knows, leket, shikha, and peah. Peah is the corners of the field. Why the corner and not in the middle? Because you want to make it easy for the poor person to be able to get it. Leket is when you're actually cutting the produce and you drop a few, you leave them unless it's more than 3 or more, then you're permitted to pick it up if they're in the same place. And shikha is if you leave behind bundles. Now Rabbeinu Bachya here says something beautiful, similar to what we said before. He quotes Rashi, and he says the question that I asked you earlier of Chazer v'shana aleihem, that the Torah repeated this verse to say that if a person violates and doesn't leave out for the poor, they violate 2 verses. Amar Rav Avdimi bar Rab Yossi, Mara kosav litnum be'emsa regalim. My question, Why is this a mechitza in the middle of the holidays? Why is it a commercial break in the middle of all the different holidays? He says, I'll tell you. You have Pesach Atzeres Mikan, you have Pesach and Shavuos on one side, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot on the other side, and this verse in the middle. Limedcha, to teach us, like the Chassam Sofer said, Shekol Anosein Leket Shikcha Pe'elani, a person who takes care of others with their fields in those days when over, in the beginning of the 1900s, 90% of the world's economy was agrarian, right? Now, I don't know what it is. It might be the opposite. Karoi Maila Alav Kotsuv Ki'ilu Bana Beis HaMikdash. Look at that. You give these beautiful offerings, you take care of people, Bana Beis HaMikdash, it's like you built the Beis HaMikdash and you brought offerings inside of it. That's why that verse is in the middle of the fiddle. Okay? So, I bring this up because it's a verse in the Torah, in this week's Parsha, and I also bring it up because for those of us that go to shul every day, we're used to giving tzedakah every single day. And now, if we're not going to shul every day, we have to make sure that we're putting monies in the pushka, or we're writing checks, or sending online, or whatever it is, but we want to make sure that we don't miss out on this incredibly important mitzvah, that if you take care, it's like building the Beis HaMikdash and bringing offerings yourself. Okay. So, this concept of gleaning is actually a highlight in the book of Ruth, in the book of Rus, where it says that when Nami went ahead and allowed Rus to come with her, Rus Dovkaba, Rus would not leave her mother-in-law to be, and she went back with her to Beit Lechem. It is said in the beginning of the second chapter that Nami had a relative, and he was an Ish Gibor Chayil. It's like the first, we've always heard about Eshes Chayil, but the only Ish Gibor Chayil in the Tanakh is Boaz, right? Mishpachas Elimelech Ushbo Boaz. He was a relative of her late husband. Vatomer Rusa Moavia El Nami. So once they found that out, Rus said to her mother-in-law, Mom, I'd like to go help earn a living for us. Eil chana va'alakta b'shibalim. I want to go and I'm going to do leket. I'm going to do this mitzvah of leket, of the gleanings from the produce that falls. And I'll go behind them. Achar asher emsachein be'einav. I'll go after them, and maybe I'll find favor in the eyes of your relative. Vatomer la, and so Nami said, L'chi biti, go. So she went. Verse 3, Vatelech vatavo vatalaket basadeh. She went and she started doing the gleaning, achrei hakotzrim, because you're only allowed to go, I believe, after the harvesters go first, because otherwise, how do you know what they leave behind? So I think when they go a second time, you go then. So she went, lakotzrim, vayikar mikreha chelkas hasada leboaz, and by circumstance, it would seem, she actually landed on the relative's property. Unbelievable. And Boaz came back that day from the Sanhedrin. V'hine Boaz ba mi Beis Lechem. He came. V'yomer lakotzrim Hashem imachem. And he said to all of his harvesters, may God be with you. V'yomer lo yivarechecha Hashem. And they said back, God should bless you. Now, I don't know if you know, those that have davened in a Sephardi minyan, this is actually the way every aliyah begins, from this verse. Okay? The Ola, the one getting the aliyah, says, Hashem imachem, and everyone answers back, Yivarechecha Hashem. This is where it comes from. Well, it was a very depressing time period. It was so depressing that we saw in the beginning of the book of Ruth that there was a tremendous amount of chutzpah, which we're going to talk about. And so it was decided that we were going to have to introduce more godliness into our lives. And Boaz came and he started and said, Hashem imachem, may God be with you. It was not normal until that time. And perhaps he used the actual name of Hashem himself, the Shem Adnus. Nobody spoke using God's name. Now, everybody who you meet on the street, how are you doing? Baruch Hashem. Right? But nobody ever spoke like that. It was considered to be too holy to say. And Boaz came and said it. And then, right after Boaz introduced godliness, he noticed that there was this harvest, that there was a young woman gleaning in the fields. Vayomar Boaz Lenaro, Boaz said to his foreman, Hanitzav ala kotzrim, lemia nairazos. Who is that woman? Who is that? It seems that he noticed that when she gleaned, she did so in the most modest of ways. She didn't bend over so that one would be able to see any shapeliness. Rather, she kneeled to the ground in order to pick it up. And that made an impression on the holy Boaz. Vayana nara nitzav ala kotzrim vayomer nara moaviyahi. He said, oh, she's a girl who came originally from Moab, and she came with Naomi from the hills of Moab. And she came and she said, Vatomer alakta, I'd like to glean, Yasafti ba'amarim, and I'll be able to take alongside among the sheaves after the other harvesters. Vatavo vatamod, and she's been here from early in the morning until late at night. Vayomer Boaz el Rus. Boaz said to Rus, come here, sweetie. Shamat biti, I've heard about you. I don't want you gleaning on anyone else's field. I want to personally open up my field to you. V'gamlo savuri mizeh. And I don't want you going anywhere else. V'chosid bakin im narosai. And I want you to cling together with my narosai, the girls that work, that are already doing their gleaning, by my girls. And she was overjoyed. I tell you this instance into the second parak of Rus, not only because it introduces the concept of leket, the way that we see in Pasuk Chaf Gimel, I believe, in our Parsha, but I'm doing it also because it gives an indication of what we're trying to do during this Sfiras HaOmer period. How does this all apply to us today as we're now on Pesach Sheni, the second chance? Lag BaOmer is coming right behind, and Shavuos only 3 weeks away. So it's the one time of the year that we are implored to improve our midos. Right? And the next bunch of thoughts I saw in the Sefer of Rav Wolfson, the Emunas Hitecha. The only time the Torah gives us preparation requirements is before we receive the Torah. They're called the Shloshes Yemei Agbala. So that means we now have this Sphira period to take a good hard look at our midos. In a sense, we know that the Torah was given to Bnei Adam. We say it in Hallel. The Torah was given to people, not to animals. But every human being has animalistic tendencies. And therefore, it's during this time period that we try to rid ourselves of those animalistic tendencies. That's one of the reasons why Pirkei Avos is studied this time of year. And it just so happens that this week we learn the fourth perek. And what does the fourth perek teach us? Zeu chacham alomed mikol adam. Who is a wise person? Someone that learns from everyone. Now, just like it's our time that we need to improve our midos, and who amongst us in the world can't improve our midos? It was the lack of midos that plagued the 24,000 students. That's what brought down all of Rabbi Akiva's students, except for, I believe, the 5 afterwards that rebuilt. Until the Bnei Yissaschar says, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai completed the Zohar. The Bnei Yissaschar says that it was when he completed the Zohar, that was when they stopped dying. Why was it so important that he finished the Zohar? Because the Zohar shows that every single letter of the Torah is worthy and is holy and has infinite meaning. And we're taught in the Zohar that every single Jew in the world links up to a letter in the Torah. That's actually the acronym of Yisrael, Yeshishim Ribu Osios, and the people of Israel. There are 600,000 people from when we left Egypt, 600,000 adult men between the ages of 20 and up. And each one of them, and even though we know there's more than 600,000 letters in the Torah, it doesn't matter. The implication is that every single soul is linked up to passages in the Torah. And therefore, when that teaching came forward, all of a sudden, everybody gave each other the appropriate honor. Everybody realized that everyone else had something to present, to offer, to be able to bring. Everyone has their letter of Torah to bring to the world. That's Ezehu Chacham Alomed Mikol Adam, and everyone deserves respect. And so it's specifically during this time. And when we count all the way up to Sfira, we'll get up to 50. Chamishim Yom. Last night is 49 to count. We'll make it to 50. What's unique about 50? 50 is like the Yovel year. In the Yovel year, everything becomes free. Freedom from slavery. And we too achieve freedom from our lower selves as we receive the Torah, eternity. The book of Ruth begins with terrible chutzpah. Vayihi bimei shvot hashoftim. It was the days, Rashi says, that they were judging the judges. No one had a nice word to say about another. Everyone was interested in talking down and dissing one another. It was a time of immorality. We're taught that Boaz slept in his warehouse, or he went around by the fields at night because there was harlotry that he was trying to prevent. Since it was a time of chutzpah, we know from the Gemara in Sota, it's a time that is ripe for the Mashiach to come forward. When there's a lot of chutzpah in the world, you knew the precipice of messianic opportunity was there. And therefore, that was when Ruth converts. Ruth becomes the Giores, and she will become the progenitor of David HaMelech, who we say is the David ben Yishai of the Mashiachecha. That's from where the Mashiach comes. How was Rus able to bring forth Mashiach? Because it was a terrible time of chutzpah, and she was the opposite of chutzpah. She went ahead and followed her mother-in-law with the greatest of derech eretz in the world. She was the one who went out of her way, and when she gleaned, she got down all the way to the ground instead of bending over. She was the opposite. And therefore, when you're the opposite of chutzpah, you bring Mashiach. The same thing is true, even her ancestor Lot, when he procreated with his oldest daughter, and she named her son Moab, which is where Rus comes from, the ultimate chutzpah. From the ultimate chutzpah can come Mashiach. And even on the other side of the family, of where David, his father, where it comes from Yehuda, we know that why is it that he left collateral with Tamar? Why didn't he just say, I'll send you the sheep? Why did he have to leave collateral with the cloak, the signet, and the cane? Because he was a man of derech eretz, of yashrus, of the opposite of chutzpah. When we do the opposite of chutzpah, then Mashiach's footsteps could be heard. Our task is to recognize in this time of year in ourselves, but also in every single other person, the goodness and the greatness therein. To remove the selfishness, to remove the chutzpah of saying, I want what I want. The whole self-quarantine that so much of the world has been observing is all about not hurting others. That's the opposite of chutzpah. The ultimate in chutzpah is to walk around and say, hey, I'm young and vibrant. The virus isn't going to hurt me. To heck with everybody else. That's chutzpah. The quarantine has brought the opposite of chutzpah. And the world that we live in is chutzpah sheba chutzpah. Okay? Although it hasn't been so chutzpahdik the last 8 weeks. Our task is to respond with dignity like Yehuda and even like Yosef did. Like Rus, and then the Geula will come. Ashreinu. We are so fortunate that we have a Torah that in this week's Parsha teaches us Uvakutrechem, that when you harvest, you should leave Loisachale Pa'asad Chad, leave over the Peah, the Leket. We leave over these Matnas Aniyim, that it's a mitzvah, it's an obligation. It embeds within us these beautiful human traits of giving. Who amongst us doesn't have midos that we need to work on? And if you try to work on all of them at once, I guarantee you won't fix any of them. Work on one. Pick your midah, your corona midah. Make sure that during this time that midah gets improved. Pick a person you want to improve the relationship with. Make that your corona relationship. But here we have a conglomeration of a message from the Parsha, a message in the Sphira, a message in Rus, and a message that will help us bring Mashiach.